Hello and welcome to our special program, To The Point. Today we have with us noted filmmaker, none other than Mr. Shekhar Kapur. Sir, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Let me begin straight away with something related to innovation. You're a member of National Innovation Council, and as I was saying, you're a noted filmmaker as well. You've produced and directed a number of films and several other audiovisual projects as well. My first question is that how do you think this particular medium, that's the film medium, can help in inculcating the spirit of innovation in people?
Well, if you remember, there was recently a film called Three Idiots, right? It was all about innovation. It was about our education system and how that education system actually dulls the innovative mind. And one student breaks away and becomes innovative and wins. So that actually caused a lot of parents to rethink. A lot of kids, I've met a lot of people, and it's such a huge hit. You'd imagine that a film about education would be such a big hit. It was. And it's really caused a lot of changes in the way people think. Now, it's not just films. We think of content as like a 2.5-hour film. It's social media. We're dealing with social media. We're dealing with the idea of the internet. We're dealing with Twitter. We're dealing with short films. We're dealing with short films that go out on YouTube or any other platforms like Vimeo. So it's a much broader issue that we're looking at when we're looking at television.
Yeah, exactly. And this is a very famous quote which says that the art of that particular day is a depiction, or rather a mirror image of the contemporary society. So in that sense, obviously it becomes really, really important for any art form, be it films or television or several other ways, to go ahead and ensure that something like Three Idiots is being made and remade to go ahead and point out to people. You spoke about education. How do you think, or rather, how important do you believe it is to go ahead and rejuvenate? I wouldn't say sort of realign, I would say rejuvenate the education system of our country, or for say maybe some other country which has an education system like ours.
Three things. Number one, we inherited an education system from the British. The British left behind a lot of great infrastructure, and for many, many years we thought this was the right education system if India has to join the rest of the world. Unfortunately, that education system is encouraging the creation of not babus, but workers. It has not been, and never was meant to be by the British, to encourage major global innovators, simply because we never thought the Indians could become global innovators. And yet, if you go back, Ramanujan was Indian. Some of the greatest philosophers and the greatest mathematicians, the greatest scientists came out of India, out of a completely different education system. It was more of an education system that relied on intuition more than rote learning. We now have an education system that relies on step-by-step rote learning, exams step-by-step. And the idea of intuition and curiosity has been taken out of our education system. So that's one thing we have to fix. However, our education system has become so cumbersome and so inefficient that the very idea of administrating it is becoming impossible. And I say it's impossible because I know that my driver, he says to me that in his village, the teacher never comes to school. So they've got together, I put the first bit of money in, they got together and they're hiring their own teachers in the government schools.
Yeah, that's more or less the case. We see reports every day that there is a reduced number of teacher, the vacancies. Even just recently, there was a report about schools in Delhi where too many seats were vacant in government schools.
Yeah, teaching is an art. We don't pay our teachers enough. We don't train our teachers enough. And it's an art. Anybody who's worked with children over a large number of years will tell you that ultimately teaching doesn't work. The encouragement of learning works. And there's a diametric difference between the two.
Methodology is something which will have to be.
Yeah, the encouragement of curiosity, the encouragement of rebellion, the encouragement of going against the teaching works. But our education system dulls that. So we have to really relook at our education system. What's the answer? That's the point. The answer, I believe, is technology? The answer, I believe, lies in social media. As in the theoretical events, takes time, where everybody in India is connected to the internet, what will happen is the teachers, they'll become facilitators. They won't be teachers. And a major part of the educational process will be what we call today chatter. You know, be chatter within the students, not just in the classroom, but with students all over the world. Now, the moment our students connect to students all over the world, their aspirations rise, and that chatter, that interchange of ideas and emotional interactions will lead to a curiosity, and then the kids will try and find out themselves.
That's an interesting term. Now, you're rightly pointing out. So, you're saying that the answer is more and more use of social media platforms or the several platforms available in the new media. In fact, if you look at the kind of, I would say, popularity these platforms have in today's youth, it's huge, it's high, and you don't have to buy a high-end phone. Thanks to the domestic manufacturers, there are low-end phones which come a little cheap as well, but they also have new social media platforms available. But the problem is, and that is what my question is as well, that youth of today seems to be very active on social media platforms. But when it comes to active participation in social events, social issues, it takes a backseat. And the recent example is reports suggesting that almost around less than around 40% of those who were eligible to vote in these elections, that's those who attained the age of 18 years, effectively enrolled themselves to vote. 60% have not yet done so.
Okay. Remember that those people that are on social media, and it's increasing, it hasn't really increased to the extent that we would like it to increase to, but it will. And those people who say it won't only looks at the statistics and say, "Are smartphones kahan aayenge India mein? Bahut महंगे हैं." So very smart. मुझे याद है, I remember when the video players came first. They were banned first because they said, "Arey, you can't play video without censorship." And they said, "Oh, it's too expensive. India will never take to video." It almost killed the film business. It almost killed everything else that we had. So, what happens is that person on Twitter or on any social media is saying he's very or she's very aware is not necessarily a person who's performing an act that says, "I will go out and vote." But does that mean that person is responsible? Have we done nothing? No, we've not done nothing. That person is certainly aware of the issues. They are involved by being part of that social media group and by part of being part of that idea, and therefore they could influence other people, out of which one will go and vote that wasn't supposed to go and vote. Now, in the future, votes will be brought to them. In the future, we'll have huge computers that actually you can vote online. Now, the moment you start voting online, they'll all vote.
So you say that the beginning has been made and it will be taken forward. Let's look at another aspect of new media platforms, and that is given the fact that so much of people, and it starts with youth, but it's not only limited to youth. Even people who are in higher age groups are also taking up to these particular new platforms and this particular new technology. So how can we use these forms of new media to improve governance, which is at the core of everything in a democracy?
Well, what the government, for example, is doing right now is putting out all their information, creating free-to-use websites. Once they are out there and they are easy to use, all the government, you want to look at the accountability of the government, you only need to go to the websites. And all the information, barring secret information, is there. So, because it's out there, you see, remember, knowledge is power, right? So, by the government revealing, and every government that doesn't want accountability hides. A government that reveals all its information is not hiding and is giving power to the people and is making itself completely accountable. So obviously, social media and these vast amount of government networks that are now going out and that are putting all the government decisions online for people to access is giving power to the people to hold the government accountable.
Okay, great. Before we come to the end of this particular segment, one last question I would like to ask is, So much of focus on innovation, so much of focus on innovative ideas. Why do you think this is required at this stage in time for our society? Have we lost the touch to such a great extent that this much focus is being laid on going back to innovative stage?
We don't have a choice. 12 million people are joining, 12 million young people, youth. We keep talking about youth demographics as being our biggest, the power of India. 12 million youth every year are joining the queue of the unemployed. In 5 years, that'll be 60 million, all looking for jobs and not finding jobs. Can you imagine what will happen to India if 60 million people, kids, young people who've just come out, joined the job market and can't find jobs? So, what must innovation do? Innovation must turn job seekers into job creators. That's the fundamental idea. That instead of going out to find a job, you find ways to create new ideas and new businesses to create jobs. And that's what we're hoping that innovation will do.
Okay, great. We'll take a short break out here, and when we come back, we will definitely have questions for Mr. Shekhar Kapur about something about which he is famous for. That's filmmaking. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Noted filmmaker and a member of National Innovation Council now, Mr. Shekhar Kapur is still with us. So that was about innovation. Let's now talk about your profession. And obviously, when anyone who will be watching this interview would be looking forward to answer to certain questions about that as well. I'll first come to the latest buzz about Mr. Kapur. That is that you've signed on to go ahead and direct a series on Rasputin, a mystic Russian character, a historic mystic Russian character rather. Can you please tell us a little bit more about how it is going to be and what is it all about?
Well, one thing in America that's happening is that more and more film directors are now turning to television because real stories are now being told on television, and people are watching. Huge numbers are turning away from film to television. And any director that really wants to not want to do a big franchise film like Batman and things like that is saying, all right, so if I want to tell stories, I have to come here. I've always been fascinated by Rasputin because it's a fascinating time in Russian history. It's a time of huge change. The Bolsheviks were coming in. Russia was fighting a war with Germany, which it lost. And a large part of our history as it exists today was being formed then. And there was one man called Rasputin who half the people thought was a mystic, was a healer, was a man of God, and the other half thought was a charlatan and was the devil himself. In the same party, at night, people would say, women would say, his breath smells like fresh flowers. Within somebody else who was there said his breath stinks of being a drunken peasant. Which one was he? And who was this man? Or was he a man that was defined completely by the society that he lived in? Was he just representing the decadence and the falling, crumbling society of that time? So that's I find fascinating.
Okay, so can we go ahead and look forward to this particular series to reveal the mystery behind Rasputin? Is that what this is all about?
I hope so. I hope so.
Okay.
But it's this time. I'm filming. I'll be filming Pani, the film feature.
Exactly. That's what I was coming to, because this is something which is a very interesting topic. It is being said that the movie Pani, which is something which I believe just recently you were back in States auditioning some actors for this particular movie itself. What is Pani all about? Because we have had I guess several movies by that synonym. We had Water. There were one or two other movies. What's Pani going to be all about?
Pani is about a future world, and it's only future because I just want to confine everything to one city. But it's about a city that runs out of water, and as it runs out of water, those that have the power take all the water and drip feed those that don't. So about 12% of the people have the water, and the rest 88% don't have water. So democracy has become very simple. It's very easy now. If you give us votes, we'll give you water. If you don't give us votes, we won't give you water. So water and thirst has become the new weapon. And it's looking at that time, and the risings of a revolution. But if you revolt, they'll just shut off the water. So what will you do?
pretty much synonymous, I guess, with the fact that it's the water crisis doesn't seem to be too far away.
Well, I've been wanting to make this film for 12 years now. When I first moved to this idea and talked to people, they said, Pani, kya problem hai? Koi problem nahi hai. You know, because most of us actually still get. So I was asked the other day, will people respond to this idea? I said, 95% of this world, people of this world live currently in a water crisis.
You're right.
You know, we talk about the education of the girl child. The number of girls in India that can't go to school because they have to go
And
to fetch water. And that's what they do all day, is fetch water and bring water back. So this is a crisis that will become, it's a social crisis. It's not just a crisis of Pani kaise denge. It's a complete social crisis.
And water is the center of several other issues as well. For example, sanitation, poverty, hunger. So obviously, this is something which is we obviously believe that this is going to be another masterpiece from your cupboard. Talking about masterpieces, are you planning to go ahead and have a third one in the series of Elizabeth? The first two one were very well received.
Yes, I am, but I think there's time yet. I think that Kate Blanchett has to get a little older, because the third will be around the time that she died. What's the story when she died? Because there's a very interesting story about her, that she didn't want to be ordinary. So when she felt that she was going to die and falling sick, she stood for 18 hours and refused to lie down.
Oh.
Because she thought, oh shit, if I lie down, I'll die, and then I'm not divine, I'm just ordinary. So there is a very interesting story about the conflict between if you all your life consider yourself divine, like a lot of leaders today think that they rule by divine right. She also said that we rule by divine right. All the leaders fall into that trap. So if you rule by divine right, how are you going to handle mortality? Because then you become ordinary like everybody else. So that's what the third film.
So that's going to be really interesting. But I guess, as you're saying, that's going to take time. Will that follow Pani? Is that what the plan is?
I don't know yet. I don't know. But I think what will follow Pani is probably Rasputin.
Oh, that's wonderful. One more thing. You worked rather with both big worlds, that's Bollywood and the Hollywood as well. What's the difference? It's a basic question, but then what's the difference?
So Hollywood is like going to a supermarket where everything is organized, right? So there's a whole shelf of what you want with all the prices written in, and you come and then you know exactly how much it all costs, and you check out. It's very well organized. Bollywood is like going to Chor Bazaar, right? Everything is negotiable, everything is chaotic. Now, do you prefer organization? Of course you do. However, in Bollywood, chaos also provokes creativity.
Yeah.
A supermarket can become less adventurous.
And a little boring as well.
And could become quite boring and quite dull. So how do you provoke your own creativity? So uncertainty and chaos is two very essential ingredients of creativity. So going to Chor Bazaar, for example, could be very creative and provocative. But sometimes you have to take that chaos and that uncertainty and turn it into a discipline. So you need a little balance of both. Both are a bit of extremes, and somewhere you need the balance. When I work there, I must say I do miss the chaos of being in Bollywood and the uncertainty of what's going to happen tomorrow, next day, afterwards.
Well, that's a statement. So ultimately, Shekhar Kapur does miss the uncertainty and the chaos of Bollywood.
Yeah.
One more, and this might be the last question I have, is it is really difficult for an artist to go ahead and pick the best from his works. But still, it's too tempting a question, and I'll definitely ask it. What do you think is Shekhar Kapur's best piece so far?
Oh, no question at all. Bandit Queen. There's no question. I mean, if somebody asks me, is there a film that you're very afraid of that you could never achieve that again, it's Bandit Queen. Other films that I made, it's a lot of skill. Bandit Queen was fundamentally so instinctive and so much intuitive, so intuitive. I'm not sure, because those circumstances may never arise again for me to be that intuitive. So Bandit Queen is by far my favorite piece of the work. When I finally, when I'm going saying, what are you leaving with us that you're really proud of? I'll say Bandit Queen.
That's wonderful. So, and that was, I guess, pretty much decided for, was it? That the answer is going to be Bandit Queen. It is. I guess, somewhere etched in your conscience or heart. somewhere that this is something which
It is etched very, very hard in my heart, yes.
Okay, we hope to see see another work at the same par as Bandit Queen would be. Thank you so much for your time, sir. Thank you for being with Rajya Sabha TV. So this was noted filmmaker Shekhar Kapur in a freewheeling conversation with us. Also, he is right now a member of National Innovation Council. Keep watching Rajya Sabha Television. We'll come back next week with a different personality on a different topic.